In the heart of the Byzantine Empire, a secret weapon burned so fiercely it could not be quenched by water. This was the stuff of nightmares for their enemies, a liquid flame that secured the empire's dominance for centuries. It was known as Greek fire. Imagine the scene. The year is 677. The massive Arab fleet is bearing down on Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire. Victory seems certain for the invaders. But then, from the Byzantine ships, long bronze tubes unleash torrents of fire. The sea itself catches ablaze, and the enemy fleet is engulfed in an inferno. Panic, chaos, and destruction follow. This was the devastating power of Greek fire, a weapon so effective it became legendary. For over 700 years, this terrifying weapon was the ultimate deterrent, the ace up the sleeve for the Byzantine emperors. It was used primarily in naval warfare, projected from siphons mounted on the prows of their warships, known as dromons. These ships would get close to enemy vessels and unleash a stream of sticky, burning liquid. The psychological impact was as potent as the physical destruction. Enemy sailors, seeing fire that couldn't be extinguished by water, would often abandon their ships in terror. It was a weapon that defied the laws of nature as they knew them. The fire clung to everything it touched, wood, sails, and flesh, and burned relentlessly. Sand and vinegar were rumored to be the only things that could smother it, but in the heat of battle, such measures were nearly impossible to apply. This liquid flame allowed a smaller Byzantine navy to defeat much larger forces time and time again, protecting Constantinople from numerous sieges and preserving the empire against overwhelming odds. It single-handedly shifted the balance of power in the Mediterranean. The Battle of the Sea of Marmara is a perfect example of its strategic importance. The Umayyad Caliphate launched a massive 2-year siege of Constantinople, both by land and by sea. The city was on the brink of collapse. But the Byzantine navy, armed with Greek fire, turned the tide. They decimated the Arab fleet, burning ship after ship. This stunning victory not only saved the capital, but also halted the Arab advance into Europe for a time, a pivotal moment in history. Another famous instance was during the Rus sieges in the 10th century. The Kiev and Rus, fierce warriors from the north, attacked Constantinople with a formidable fleet. Once again, the Byzantines deployed their secret weapon. The chronicles describe the Rus warriors leaping into the sea to escape the flames, only to find the fire burning on the water's surface around them. The defeat was so total that it left a lasting impression on the Rus, shaping future relations with the Byzantine Empire. So, what was this mysterious substance? That's the billion-dollar question that has puzzled historians, chemists, and military strategists for centuries. The formula for Greek fire was one of the most closely guarded state secrets in history. It was passed down from emperor to emperor, and its production was confined to a single family, the Kallinikos clan, who were credited with its invention. The penalty for revealing the formula was death. This extreme secrecy was incredibly effective. So effective, in fact, that when the Byzantine Empire finally fell in 1453, the secret of Greek fire was lost forever. No definitive recipe has ever been found. However, we do have clues. Contemporary accounts describe it as a thick, sticky liquid. Based on these descriptions and modern chemical analysis, scholars have proposed several theories about its composition. The most widely accepted theory is that the base ingredient was some form of petroleum or naphtha, which was readily available in the Black Sea region. This would have been mixed with other substances to create its unique properties. One key ingredient was likely pine resin, which would make the mixture sticky, causing it to adhere to surfaces. Other proposed additives include quicklime, which reacts exothermically with water, potentially creating the effect of the fire igniting upon contact with the sea. Sulfur and saltpeter, a key component of gunpowder, are also frequently mentioned. The combination of these ingredients would create a highly flammable, water-resistant, and adhesive concoction, a perfect naval weapon for its time. Modern attempts to replicate Greek fire have yielded some fascinating results. Researchers have mixed various combinations of petroleum, resins, and other chemicals, and have managed to create liquids that burn on water and are difficult to extinguish. Some experiments have even incorporated pressurized siphons, similar to those described in Byzantine texts, to project the fiery liquid over distances. While these experiments can mimic the effects described in historical accounts, we can never be certain if we've perfectly replicated the original formula. The precise ratio of ingredients, the method of mixing, and the pressurization technique are all lost to time. The Byzantines had over 700 years to perfect their weapon, a level of refinement that is almost impossible to reconstruct from fragmented texts and educated guesses. The true secret of Greek fire remains locked away in the past. The legacy of Greek fire extends far beyond the battlefield. It represents the pinnacle of ancient and medieval military technology, a testament to the ingenuity of Byzantine engineers. Its existence fueled countless legends and stories, making it a symbol of mysterious and overwhelming power. The fear it inspired was a weapon in itself, often deterring potential invaders before a single battle was fought. Its influence can be seen in the development of later incendiary weapons. From the early forms of gunpowder used in cannons to modern napalm, the concept of a weapon that could burn on water and stick to its target continued to fascinate and inspire military inventors throughout history. But perhaps its greatest legacy is the mystery itself. Why do we remain so fascinated by Greek fire today? It's because it represents a lost piece of knowledge, a secret that an entire empire managed to keep for centuries. In our age of information, where secrets are hard to keep, the story of Greek fire is a powerful reminder of a time when knowledge was a rare and precious commodity, capable of defending an empire and changing the course of history. It's a puzzle that invites us to imagine, to speculate, and to marvel at the achievements of the past. The flame of Greek fire may have been extinguished over 500 years ago, but its legend burns as brightly as ever. It is a symbol of lost technology, a whisper from a fallen empire, and one of history's most enduring and fascinating enigmas. Imagine a weapon so terrifying, its secret formula was guarded more closely than the emperor's life. A fire that couldn't be extinguished by water, that clung to ships and soldiers, and struck fear into the hearts of the most hardened warriors. This was Greek fire, the legendary superweapon of the Byzantine Empire. For centuries, this naval incendiary gave Byzantium an almost supernatural edge, allowing a dwindling empire to fend off massive fleets and secure its survival against overwhelming odds. But what was this mysterious substance? How was it made? And why did its secret vanish from history, leaving behind only legends and charred remains? Today, we delve into the fiery mystery of Greek fire. The Byzantine Empire, the eastern continuation of the Roman Empire, was a beacon of civilization for over 1,000 years. But its existence was constantly under threat. From the east came the rapidly expanding Arab caliphates, and from the north, Slavic and Bulgar tribes pushed against its borders. By the 7th century, the empire was fighting for its very life. It was in this crucible of conflict that Greek fire first emerged, a game-changing invention that would turn the tide of history. The weapon is first recorded being used during the early Arab sieges of Constantinople. Its effect was immediate and devastating. Enemy sailors accustomed to conventional warfare had never seen anything like it. The most spectacular demonstration of Greek fire's power came during the Second Arab Siege of Constantinople. From 717 to 718 CE, an enormous Muslim fleet, numbering over 1,000 ships, blockaded the great city, intent on its capture. The fall of Constantinople seemed inevitable. The city was starving, its defenders outnumbered. But the Byzantines had their secret weapon. Under the command of Emperor Leo III, the small Byzantine navy sailed out to meet the massive armada. As the enemy ships closed in, the Byzantine dramongs unleashed torrents of liquid fire. The sea itself seemed to burn. The fire spread from ship to ship, consuming wood, sails, and men. Panic seized the Arab fleet. They had no defense against this hellish weapon. The siege was broken, and the caliphate's advance into Europe was decisively halted. This victory, largely credited to Greek fire, is considered one of the most significant in history, preserving not just the Byzantine Empire, but arguably the future of Western civilization. So, what exactly was this fearsome substance? The truth is, we don't know for sure. The formula for Greek fire was a state secret of the highest order, known only to the emperor and a select few trusted chemists. Betraying the secret was punishable by death. What we do know comes from historical accounts, which describe a thick, sticky liquid that ignited on contact and burned fiercely. Crucially, it could not be put out with water. In fact, water seemed to make it burn even more intensely. Modern analysis suggests its primary component was likely a petroleum or naphtha base, which would explain its ability to burn on water. Other potential ingredients include sulfur, quicklime, and pine resin. The quicklime, when mixed with water, would create a chemical reaction generating intense heat, possibly acting as the ignition source. It was a masterpiece of early chemical engineering. The deployment of Greek fire was as ingenious as its composition. The primary delivery system was a device called a siphon, or siphon. This was a large bronze tube mounted on the bow of Byzantine warships. A bellows-like mechanism would pressurize a heated cauldron of the liquid, forcing it out through the nozzle in a roaring jet of flame. The operators of these siphons, the siphonario, were highly trained specialists. They could aim the stream of fire with deadly accuracy, engulfing enemy vessels from a distance. Imagine the terror of seeing a bronze lion's head on the prow of an enemy ship open its mouth and spew an unstoppable torrent of liquid fire directly at you. They also developed earthenware pots and grenades filled with Greek fire, which could be thrown by hand or launched by catapults, creating fiery explosions on enemy decks or amidst enemy troops. The psychological impact of Greek fire cannot be overstated. It was a weapon of terror. Soldiers and sailors who faced it were often paralyzed by fear. The sight of the sea burning, the screams of men engulfed in flames that water could not quench, it was the stuff of nightmares. Anna Komnene, a Byzantine princess and historian, wrote that the fire had a thunderous noise and much smoke. The fear it inspired often caused enemy formations to break before the battle had even truly begun. Sailors would sometimes leap into the sea to escape the flames on their ship, only to find the fire burning on the water's surface as well. This psychological edge was just as valuable as the physical destruction the weapon caused. It created a legend around the Byzantine military, painting them as wielders of a divine or demonic power that mere mortals could not hope to overcome. For centuries, Greek fire was the ace up Byzantium's sleeve. It secured naval dominance in the Mediterranean and was a key factor in the empire's longevity. But as the Byzantine Empire entered its long decline, so too did its ultimate weapon. The constant civil wars, economic troubles, and loss of territory from the 11th century onwards took their toll. The resources and stable state apparatus needed to produce and maintain such a complex weapon began to dwindle. The specialized knowledge, passed down through a small, secretive guild of technicians, became harder to preserve. By the time of the Fourth Crusade in 1204, when Western Crusaders sacked Constantinople, Greek fire seems to have been largely lost. The Crusaders' accounts of the siege make no mention of the legendary weapon being used against them. Had the formula been lost? Had the empire simply lost the ability to manufacture it? The exact reasons remain a subject of debate among historians. Various later attempts were made to recreate it, but none seem to have matched the effectiveness of the original Byzantine formula. When the Ottoman Turks finally conquered Constantinople in 1453, the age of Greek fire was long over. The city's defenders now relied on more conventional weapons, which were no match for the massive cannons of Sultan Mehmed II. The secret of Greek fire died with the empire that created it. Today, it remains one of history's most tantalizing lost technologies. It represents a remarkable fusion of scientific knowledge and military necessity. Greek fire is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a testament to human ingenuity in the face of existential threat. It's a story of how a secret, guarded for centuries, allowed an empire to defy its enemies and shape the course of world history. A fiery legend, its embers still glow in the pages of history, a permanent reminder of the awesome power of the Byzantine Empire and its lost, liquid flame. Imagine a weapon so terrifying its flames couldn't be quenched by water. A liquid fire that clung to ships and soldiers, turning the sea itself into a blazing inferno. This wasn't a scene from a fantasy movie. This was the reality of Greek fire, the legendary superweapon of the Byzantine Empire. For centuries, this terrifying invention was the ultimate deterrent, a closely guarded secret that saved an empire and shaped the course of history. But what was it? How did it work? And most importantly, where did it go? Today, we're diving deep into the mystery of Greek fire, one of history's most enigmatic and devastating lost technologies. So let's start with the basics. What exactly was Greek fire? The name itself is a bit of a misnomer, given by the Crusaders. The Byzantines called it sea fire, liquid fire, or prepared fire. It was an incendiary weapon, a combustible compound emitted from a device that could be projected onto enemy ships and fortifications. The most terrifying aspect was its ability to burn on water. In an age of wooden ships, this was the ultimate naval nightmare. Trying to douse it with water often just made the fire spread further and burn more intensely. Descriptions from the time paint a horrifying picture, a thick, sticky substance that adhered to any surface, producing a huge roar, clouds of thick, noxious smoke, and a fire that was nearly impossible to extinguish. The origin of this fearsome weapon is shrouded in a bit of legend. According to the Byzantine chronicler Theophanes the Confessor, it was invented around the year 672 by a Greek-speaking Christian refugee from Syria named Kallinikos of Heliopolis. He brought his invention to the Byzantine capital, Constantinople, just in time. The city was facing a massive naval siege by the newly expanding Umayyad Caliphate. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. This new weapon was deployed, and the results were catastrophic for the Arab fleet. The Byzantines didn't just repel the attack. They annihilated the enemy navy, securing their capital and marking the first major battlefield success for Greek fire. Now for the million-dollar question: what was in it? This is where the real mystery begins, because the exact formula for Greek fire was one of the most jealously guarded state secrets in history. The recipe was known only to a select few, passed down through generations of the Kallinikos family and trusted imperial officials. This secrecy was so effective that to this day, we still don't have the precise formula. However, based on historical accounts and modern chemical analysis, historians and scientists have pieced together a likely list of ingredients. The primary component was almost certainly a petroleum-based substance, like crude oil or naphtha, which was readily available from natural seeps around the Black Sea. To this base, other ingredients were likely added. Pine resin would have made the mixture thick and sticky, helping it adhere to targets. Sulfur was a common incendiary ingredient that would have contributed to the noxious smoke and smell. Other potential additives include quicklime, which reacts exothermically with water, generating intense heat, and maybe even saltpeter, a key component of gunpowder. The combination of these materials would create a self-oxidizing, highly combustible mixture that was incredibly difficult to put out. It was a masterpiece of early chemical warfare. But a weapon is only as good as its delivery system. The Byzantines didn't just throw this stuff in pots. They developed sophisticated and intimidating ways to deploy it. The most famous method was a device called a siphon or siphon. These were large bronze tubes, often mounted on the prows of Byzantine warships, known as dromons. These siphons were likely operated by a pump mechanism. The liquid fire would be heated in a cauldron, pressurized, and then forced through the nozzle by a hand pump. The nozzle itself was often shaped like the head of a lion or other mythical beast, adding to the psychological terror. Imagine being an enemy sailor, seeing a Byzantine ship bearing down on you. A giant bronze lion's head on its bow, suddenly spewing a torrent of roaring, unstoppable fire. It wasn't just a physical weapon, it was a weapon of pure fear. Besides the large ship-mounted siphons, the Byzantines also had portable, handheld versions called cherasifnes, which were essentially ancient flamethrowers used by soldiers in both naval and land battles. They also packed the mixture into clay grenades, which could be thrown by hand or launched by catapults. The impact of Greek fire on history cannot be overstated. It was the Byzantine Empire's ace in the hole. Its most famous and arguably most important use came during the Second Arab Siege of Constantinople in 717 to 718. An enormous Arab army and navy, numbering over 100,000 men and nearly 2,000 ships, laid siege to the city by land and sea. It was one of the most determined efforts to conquer the Byzantine capital. The situation looked dire, but once again, Greek fire turned the tide. The Byzantine navy, though heavily outnumbered, used their liquid fire to devastating effect. They broke the naval blockade, burning ship after ship. The Arab fleet was crippled, and with their supply lines cut, the land army was starved into submission during a particularly harsh winter. This victory was monumental. Many historians argue that by saving Constantinople, the Byzantines halted the Umayyad Caliphate's advance into southeastern Europe, preventing a potential Islamic conquest of the continent from the east, just as the Battle of Tours would later do in the west. Without Greek fire, the map of Europe and the history of the world might look very different today. So if this weapon was so effective, why don't we have it anymore? Why did the secret vanish? The answer lies in the very secrecy that made it so powerful. The production of Greek fire was a state monopoly, compartmentalized to an extreme degree. Different families or guilds were responsible for sourcing individual ingredients, but only the central authority and the Kallinikos clan knew how to combine them. This prevented the formula from ever leaking to the empire's many enemies, like the Arabs, Bulgars, or Kiev and Rus, who all tried and failed to replicate it. But this extreme secrecy became its downfall. As the Byzantine Empire began its long decline, its administrative structures weakened. The Fourth Crusade in 1204 was a devastating blow. Crusaders from Western Europe sacked Constantinople, shattering the empire's power and continuity. In the chaos that followed, key institutions were destroyed, and lineages of secret keepers were likely broken. When the Byzantines eventually retook their capital, it seems the full knowledge of Greek fire was gone for good. By the 14th century, references to the weapon become scarce. And by the time of the final fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in 1453, the empire's ultimate weapon was nothing but a memory. The rise of gunpowder and cannons had also begun to change the face of warfare, making liquid fire less of a decisive factor. Today, the legacy of Greek fire endures as a symbol of lost knowledge. Modern experiments have tried to recreate the formula with some success. Researchers have created mixtures of petroleum, resins, and other chemicals that behave in a similar way, burning on water and being difficult to extinguish. But without the original recipe, we can never be completely sure we've replicated the exact Byzantine concoction. It remains a tantalizing mystery, a testament to the ingenuity of ancient engineers and chemists. It's a powerful reminder that not all technological progression is linear. Sometimes, secrets are so well kept that they are lost to time, leaving us to marvel at the achievements of the past. The roaring flames of the Byzantine sea fire may have been extinguished centuries ago, but the legend of Greek fire continues to burn brightly in our imagination. Imagine you're on a wooden ship, the salty spray hitting your face, the roar of battle all around. Suddenly, the enemy vessel unleashes a torrent of liquid fire. It's not just any fire, this blaze clings to your ship, burns fiercely on the water's surface, and can't be extinguished by dousing it. This terrifying weapon was the Byzantine Empire's best-kept secret, Greek fire. For centuries, this incendiary weapon was the ultimate deterrent, a technological marvel that secured the survival of Constantinople against overwhelming odds. But what was it really? And why, after more than 1,000 years, do we still not know its exact formula? Today, we're diving into the mystery of Greek fire, the legendary superweapon of the medieval world. The story of Greek fire begins in the 7th century. The Byzantine Empire, the eastern successor to the Roman Empire, was under siege. Arab forces were expanding rapidly, and their powerful navy threatened the very heart of the empire, Constantinople. The city's famed Theodosian walls could protect it on land, but its sea defenses were vulnerable. The Byzantines needed an edge, something to level the playing field in naval warfare. Enter a man named Kallinikos, a Greek-speaking architect and chemist who fled from Heliopolis in Syria to Constantinople. Around the year 672, he presented a new invention to Emperor Constantine IV. This was the birth of what we now call Greek fire. The timing couldn't have been better. The first major Arab siege of Constantinople was underway, and the Byzantine navy was vastly outnumbered. When the Byzantine fleet sailed out to meet the enemy, they brought their new weapon with them. Using siphons, large bronze tubes mounted on the bows of their ships, they projected the liquid fire onto the Arab vessels. The effect was catastrophic and utterly terrifying. The Arab fleet, which had expected a conventional battle, was thrown into chaos. Ships were engulfed in flames that seemed to defy the laws of nature, burning on the water itself. The psychological impact was just as devastating as the physical destruction. The attackers retreated, their morale shattered. Constantinople was saved, and the legend of Greek fire was born. So what made this weapon so special? First, its tenacity. Unlike a simple fire arrow or flaming pot, Greek fire was a chemical compound that adhered to surfaces. It would stick to the wood of ships, the sails, and even the bodies of sailors, making it nearly impossible to put out. Eyewitness accounts describe sailors leaping into the sea to escape the flames, only to find the fire continuing to burn on the water's surface. This suggests the mixture was less dense than water and likely contained a petroleum-based component. Second, it was self-igniting, or at least very difficult to extinguish. Some sources suggest it might have ignited on contact with water, similar to modern chemical reactions, while others say it was preheated and projected while already burning. Regardless, simple water was ineffective against it. In fact, throwing water on it may have only spread the burning liquid. The recommended methods for fighting it were sand, vinegar, or even old urine, which supposedly could smother the flames. The delivery system was just as crucial as the substance itself. The Byzantines developed a complex apparatus called a siphon, or a cherasiphon for a handheld version. These were essentially ancient flamethrowers. A bronze tube would be filled with a heated liquid, and a pump mechanism, likely a force pump, would pressurize it and shoot it out in a controlled stream. The operators of these siphons, the siphonators, were highly trained specialists. The roar of the pump, the hiss of the liquid, and the terrifying jet of fire would have been a horrifying spectacle for any enemy to face. Greek fire became the cornerstone of Byzantine naval strategy. It was used to defend Constantinople during another major Arab siege in 717 to 718, once again turning the tide of the battle and securing a decisive victory. It was also deployed in conflicts with the Rus, Vikings, who sailed down the rivers of Eastern Europe to attack the wealthy empire. In 941, a Rus fleet, led by Prince Igor of Kiev, Constantinople, only to be met by the Byzantine navy and its fiery secret. The chronicles describe the Rus ships being incinerated, with the survivors telling tales of lightning from heaven. The secret of Greek fire's composition was guarded more closely than any other state secret. The formula was known only to the emperor and a select few chemists and engineers, passed down from one generation to the next within a trusted family, likely the descendants of Kallinikos himself. The penalty for revealing the secret was undoubtedly death. This extreme secrecy was vital. If the formula fell into enemy hands, the Byzantines would lose their single greatest military advantage, and they were successful in keeping it a secret. For over 500 years, no other nation managed to replicate Greek fire. Enemies captured the siphons and even interrogated prisoners, but the exact ingredients and manufacturing process remained elusive. This is the heart of the mystery that endures to this day. We have descriptions of its effects, but no surviving text gives us the complete recipe. So what do modern historians and scientists think was in it? The most likely theory is that it was a petroleum-based mixture. The Byzantines had access to crude oil seeps in the Caucasus region. This crude oil would have been the base. To this, they would have added other ingredients to give it its unique properties. Pine resin is a strong candidate. It would have made the mixture thick and sticky, helping it adhere to targets. It also burns fiercely. Sulfur is another likely component, mentioned in several historical accounts. It lowers the ignition temperature and produces noxious fumes. The real magic ingredient, however, may have been quicklime, also known as calcium oxide. When quicklime comes into contact with water, it produces an exothermic reaction, generating intense heat. If the mixture contained quicklime, it could explain the accounts of it igniting upon contact with water, or at least being incredibly difficult to extinguish with it. So a plausible recipe for Greek fire might be crude oil, pine resin, sulfur, and possibly quicklime, saltpeter, or other unknown chemicals. The exact proportions and the precise method of mixing and heating are what remain lost to time. It was a complex feat of pre-modern chemistry, a testament to the scientific knowledge of the Byzantine Empire, which is often underestimated. Why did the secret eventually disappear? The decline of the Byzantine Empire is the primary reason. As the empire weakened politically and militarily, its ability to maintain complex state secrets and specialized military units dwindled. The Fourth Crusade in 1204 was a turning point. Western Crusaders sacked Constantinople, shattering the empire's power and infrastructure. It's likely that in the chaos, the chain of knowledge was broken. The specialists were killed, the workshops destroyed, and the secret formula was lost forever. By the 13th and 14th centuries, mentions of Greek fire become less frequent, and its use seems to have ceased. Around the same time, a new incendiary weapon was rising to prominence: gunpowder. While gunpowder didn't have the same psychological terror or persistence as Greek fire, its explosive force revolutionized warfare in a different way, making the complex and secretive Greek fire obsolete. Today, Greek fire lives on in our imagination, a symbol of lost technology and ancient secrets. It features in books, movies, and video games, often depicted as a magical, unstoppable green flame. But the reality was even more impressive. It wasn't magic. It was the product of sophisticated science and engineering, wielded by an empire fighting for its survival. The story of Greek fire is a powerful reminder that history is full of mysteries we may never solve. It is a testament to human ingenuity in times of crisis, and a chilling example of the devastating power of technology and warfare. The exact recipe might be lost to the ashes of history, but the legend of the fire that burned on water will never be extinguished. Imagine this: You're on a wooden ship in the 7th century, sailing the shimmering waters of the Aegean Sea. Suddenly, on the horizon, an enemy fleet appears. They're bigger, they have more soldiers, and they're coming right for you. Fear grips your heart, but then your captain gives a signal. A long bronze tube on the bow of your ship swivels towards the enemy. A loud roaring sound erupts, and a stream of liquid fire shoots across the water. It hits the enemy ship, and chaos ensues. The fire doesn't just burn. It clings to the wood, the sails, the men. Water doesn't put it out, in fact, it seems to make it burn even hotter. The enemy is in utter panic. Their ship is engulfed in an inferno that seems to defy nature itself. This isn't just a weapon, it's a terrifying, almost supernatural force. This was Greek fire. For centuries, this mysterious incendiary weapon was the ultimate ace up the sleeve for the Byzantine Empire. It was their superweapon, their atomic bomb, the technology that allowed them to hold off vastly superior enemy forces time and time again. It saved their capital, Constantinople, on numerous occasions and fundamentally shaped the course of history in the medieval world. But here's the crazy part. To this day, nobody knows exactly what Greek fire was made of. The recipe was one of the most closely guarded state secrets in history, so secret that it eventually vanished completely. Today, we're going on a historical detective mission to uncover the story of Greek fire, the secret weapon that burned its way into legend and then disappeared forever. So where did this incredible weapon come from? Our story begins in the 7th century, a tough time for the Byzantine Empire, the eastern remnant of the Roman Empire. They were being attacked from all sides. The powerful Arab caliphates were expanding rapidly and had their sights set on the jewel of the empire, Constantinople. The city was a fortress, but the Arabs had a massive navy. In the year 672, a huge Arab fleet laid siege to Constantinople by sea. Things looked grim for the Byzantines. They were outnumbered and outmatched. But they had a secret weapon thanks to a man named Kallinikos. Kallinikos was a Greek-speaking Christian refugee from Syria who fled to Constantinople. He was also a brilliant architect and chemist. He presented Emperor Constantine IV with a new, terrifying invention, a liquid compound that could be sprayed at enemy ships and would burn ferociously, even on water. The Byzantines eagerly adopted his invention. They mounted siphons, these large, bronze-covered pumps, onto the bows of their warships, known as dromungs. When the Arab fleet approached, they unleashed hell. The effect was devastating and psychologically shattering. The Arabs had never seen anything like it. Their ships were consumed by a fire that seemed to have a life of its own. The siege was broken and Constantinople was saved. This was the dramatic debut of Greek fire on the world stage. From that moment on, Greek fire became the Byzantines' signature weapon. It was used in major naval battles for the next 500 years. It repelled another massive Arab siege of Constantinople in 717 and helped the Byzantines fend off invasions from Rus raiders from the north. The very name Greek fire struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. One chronicler, Anna Komnene, a Byzantine princess and historian, described it in vivid detail. She wrote that it was made of pine and certain other such evergreen trees mixed with flammable resin. This mixture was heated and then propelled through the siphon with a violent and continuous breath. She said it could be shot in any direction the operator wanted, and that it made a sound like the rumbling of thunder. Imagine seeing that in battle. A roaring jet of sticky, flaming liquid flying through the air, impossible to extinguish. Soldiers would jump into the sea to escape the flames, only to find the fire continuing to burn on the water's surface around them. It's no wonder that many of the Byzantines' enemies believed the weapon was magical, or sent from God. The Byzantines themselves encouraged this belief. They called it sea fire, liquid fire, or the wet fire. The secret of its formula was protected with almost religious fervor. It was known only to the emperor and a handful of trusted technicians, the Kallinikos family, who passed the knowledge down through generations. Revealing the secret was considered the highest form of treason, punishable by death. Emperor Constantine VII even wrote in a manual for his son that the formula was revealed by an angel to the first Christian Roman emperor, Constantine the Great, and that it must never be given to foreigners. So the billion-dollar question is, what was in it? This is where the real mystery begins. Since the formula was lost, historians and scientists have been trying to reverse engineer it for centuries. We have some clues from historical texts. We know it was a liquid. We know it was sticky and adhered to surfaces. We know it was difficult, if not impossible, to extinguish with water. And we know it was projected through a pressurized siphon. Based on these clues, we can make some educated guesses. The most popular theory is that the base ingredient was some form of petroleum or naphtha. The Byzantines had access to naturally occurring crude oil seeps in the Middle East. This would explain why it burned on water, as oil is less dense than water and would float on top. But petroleum alone doesn't explain its other properties. So what was mixed with it? One likely candidate is pine resin. Resin is sticky, flammable, and would help the mixture adhere to ships and people. It also produces a lot of thick, acrid smoke, adding to the psychological terror. Another ingredient often mentioned is quicklime, or calcium oxide. When quicklime is mixed with water, it undergoes a chemical reaction that produces a huge amount of heat, enough to ignite other flammable substances. This might explain the spontaneous ignition some accounts describe, or how it could be shot out of the siphon already lit. Other potential ingredients include sulfur, which would add to the noxious smell and burning intensity, and saltpeter, a key ingredient in gunpowder. Some historians even speculate that the recipe changed over time. The early Greek fire might have been different from the version used centuries later. The full recipe was likely a complex cocktail of these ingredients, and the real secret wasn't just the list of ingredients, but the precise proportions and the method of mixing and pressurizing them. The siphon system itself was a marvel of engineering. It was a pump, a heater, and a nozzle all in one, operated by a team of specialists. This whole system, the chemical formula and the delivery mechanism was the secret. So what happened to it? Why did such an effective and history-altering weapon just disappear? There isn't a single, simple answer. The decline of Greek fire was a slow, gradual process tied to the decline of the Byzantine Empire itself. After the Fourth Crusade in 1204, when Western European crusaders sacked and captured Constantinople, the empire was shattered. It was a devastating blow from which the Byzantines never fully recovered. During the chaos of the sack, it's highly likely that the workshops where Greek fire was produced were destroyed, the skilled technicians were killed or scattered, and the secrets were lost. The restored Byzantine Empire was a shadow of its former self, poor, weak, and struggling to survive. They simply may not have had the resources, the infrastructure, or the institutional knowledge to produce their superweapon anymore. Another factor was the changing nature of warfare. By the 13th and 14th centuries, a new invention was starting to dominate the battlefield: gunpowder. Cannons and firearms, while initially crude, were becoming more powerful and reliable. Gunpowder was easier to produce than the complex formula of Greek fire, and its ingredients were more widely available. While Greek fire was a terrifying naval weapon, cannons offered devastating power on both land and sea. As the Byzantines weakened and gunpowder technology spread, Greek fire became obsolete. The final nail in the coffin came in 1453, when the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II laid siege to Constantinople. He brought with him massive cannons, including the Great Bombard, which pounded the legendary walls of the city into rubble. The last Byzantine defenders fought bravely, but they had no Greek fire to save them this time. The city fell, and the Byzantine Empire came to an end. With it, any lingering hope of rediscovering the secret of Greek fire was lost for good. Today, Greek fire lives on in our imagination, a symbol of lost knowledge and ancient ingenuity. It's a reminder that past civilizations possessed technologies that we still struggle to understand. Could we recreate it today? Probably. With modern chemistry, we could likely create a similar incendiary compound. In fact, modern weapons like napalm share some characteristics with what we think Greek fire was like. But the exact formula, the specific recipe whispered from emperor to emperor in the halls of Constantinople, is gone. It vanished into history, leaving behind only legends of a fire that could burn on water and a story of how a secret weapon saved an empire for half a millennium. The story of Greek fire is a fascinating historical puzzle, a testament to human innovation, and a cautionary tale about how even the greatest secrets can be lost to time. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's greatest mysteries. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from our incredible past. Let me know in the comments what you think Greek fire was made of. See you in the next video.